I'm going to start this off a little bit better than we did yesterday. Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska's second day of the Iditarod coverage. Thank you all to those who have been tuning in and bearing with me. Yes, me. There's no one else to blame for technical issues. It's all on me. I get it. But thank you for bearing with me as I learn the ropes of being an at-home content creator with absolutely no background. Before we get into our next guest, I wanted to take a quick second to thank a few people. Yesterday, while I was live, Kat and Matt were very helpful with giving me some feedback. And without you guys, I'm not sure that yesterday would have gone as smoothly as it did. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick shout out. And I also wanted to take a quick second. You may notice I changed my mic today, but behind me, it's kind of hard to do. Behind my shoulder here, we've got some artwork. And I real quickly wanted to show that to you. Mr. Riley Dyche. And this time I got it right. How's it going, man?
Yeah, you did. Good. I'm doing well. I'm eager to see these teams come in. I think Milla is going to be rolling in real soon, so I've got the live feed up. But yeah, I'm doing well. A little different March for me. It's been, 5 years, 4 years since I've been able to be home during March, so it feels a little odd not being on my way to Nikolai right now, but it's pretty nice
Yeah,
having
yeah.
a year off.
I was talking to Christy yesterday, and this is her first time off in 15 years. And then yesterday, Wade and his wife put a video out, and it's kind of the same thing. He couldn't actually remember how long it's been since he's been home at this point in March. Um, so yeah, I'm
Oh,
sure like,
here's Milla.
oh, nice. Yeah, let's we'll take advantage of this live analysis. So Riley and I were talking before we press record, and he's like, "Hey, is it cool if I have the live feed up? I want to see how these teams are looking coming in." And I'm just like, "Of course, man. That would be perfect." So, um, right now, Milla's in first place, and she is leading the way into Nikolai, and she's got a list of names behind her as well. Travis Beals is having a heck of a showing. Ryan Reddington is in third. Dallas is in fourth. Jesse's in fifth. So the list is big. I'm gonna actually let me pull up my map, and you have to realize when I made this map and updated it about an hour ago. So Milla is now literally coming into Nikolai here. Um, but you can see that name: Reddington, Beals, Seavey, Jesse Holmes, Matt Hall, Hunter Keefe, Pete Kaiser. It's a heck of a list. And then there was kind of a little bit of break between them and Mats Peterson. So, but yeah, are you able to see Milla nice and easily, or
I am. Yep.
and so
Yeah. Yep. She's just
what's
below the river bank, so
and so what's
she'll be coming up the bank here.
got you.
They look
So
good though. She's pedaling, working hard, coming in, and there's Get out of the way, crowd of people.
And I wonder, so while Riley's watching this, I got a message from my brother a little earlier on. He had just gotten to Nikolai, so he was in I think he was in Finger Lake originally the first time, and then he moved to Nikolai. And so I wonder if any of the camera work that you're currently watching, Riley, is due to Sean's work or not.
It is Sean. He was running the camera. I could hear him narrating um
Oh, nice. Okay.
as he was moving it around. So yeah, it is.
I thought it was cool.
So
Yesterday he recorded Jesse's video. I know you were saying you haven't watched too many of the videos yet, but he recorded Jesse's video where Jesse talks about having to punch the moose in the nose on the way
uh,
in or way out or whatever. So I was just like, oh man, Sean shot that.
so yeah, I obviously watch where everybody's stopping and resting on the tracker early, but I don't overanalyze too soon. It's really the race starts, in my opinion, leaving Nikolai because a lot of teams in this field can be very fast to mile 260, um, but it's leaving mile 260 that is really what matters. So, you know, this is in my mind uh, where the race will really start to unfold or shape up out of here. Milla's team looked good coming in. They're happy and spunky. Um, Two, four, six, eight. I think am I correct in saying she has 13 dogs? Um,
Let me pull up the tracker real quick. What I'm seeing on the tracker is that she's got 14 actually.
okay. I was having a hard time counting in there. She um may have be rotating one in the bag also, but they look good and happy coming in. It's I was talking with you a little before we went live here, but historically speaking, the winner of the race is in the top 10 coming into Nikolai. Um, and that the top 10 into Nikolai doesn't necessarily mean they'll be top 10. There'll be plenty of top 10 finishers coming in behind this first group, but the winner of the race is usually in these front 10. And to really be competitive for the duration of the race, you've got to have a sound dog team leaving here. So if you over pushed, this is really the kind of the marker line for if you over push on your way to Nikolai and you get there a little faster than you should have, you're going to pay the consequence, you know, down the line here. Even with their 24 coming up, you can't really rebound if you take too much out of them these first 2 3 days. So by for cripple, you'll start to see who's really tanked on speed that may have pushed too hard coming in here. Um, so I always like to. I'm glad we're live right now as these front runners are coming in because you can really see how teams are looking. And Millis looked like a typical Milla team, really spunky and happy. They're really disciplined. They're all laying down, resting, but they're up alert, waiting for snacks. It looks and straw to come. So they're really tuned in. They know what they're doing. It's a veteran dog team. And Milla's had a different approach this year than she's had previous years. She usually does a few mid-distance races. But this year she ran the Kinnick 100, and I spoke with her there. And she said, "This is the only race I'm running. We're focusing, but prior to Iditarod, we're 100% focusing on Iditarod." Here comes our next team. Travis looking good. Be
Yeah,
eager to see if he's started rotating dogs again from Farewell to Nikolai. He's got the setup to do it. Big trailer, big sled.
what's your opinion on the whole hauling of dogs?
I I don't like it a ton, but you can't argue with results. Dallas and Mitch have proven how well it works. And it does, Ken Anderson pointed out some years ago when he tried rotating, it really didn't work for him. And he pointed out, his dog's already carrying an extra dog and a half compared to Dallas and Mitch. Ken's walking around at, you know, 180, 190, I guess. Whereas Dallas and Mitch are quite a bit smaller in frame, and that Lynn's a little more, it's just less resistance for them to haul, so they can haul an extra 55-pound dog in that bag without the dog's necessarily feeling it anymore. He's got all 16 on the line here. They all look good. Um, and Travis, same deal. He's not an overly huge guy by any means. He's about the same size as Dallas, I'd say, in stature. And he showed, I mean, all race season he's been practicing rotating dogs, and he's shown it to really work for him. I don't think they get a lot of rim sleep probably in there, but the biggest thing is they're off their feet, so they are resting, and I think this year you're going to see it be real advantageous to the guys who have it dialed in, because it's a hard packed fast trail through the whole interior. It's been a low snow year, a lot of thaw freeze. Dallas and these guys that have it dialed in, they're going to be able to rotate, 2+ dogs, 2 to even 4 dogs all through the interior, and the Yukon, which by the coast is going to have potentially have a huge difference. On soft snow years, you can't do that as easily, because it's just too much resistance.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, Travis looks good.
Does the teams look good coming in?
Yeah, they do.
Or should I say
good.
his dogs look good coming in?
Yeah, his dogs look very good. They're all wagging their tails, rolling in the snow. They look super fresh. It's
That's
some people train a little calmer than others, so I don't know how. Milla's were spunky and happy and alert. Definitely a nice looking team. Travis's looks like a very powerful team to me, though. You can't necessarily tell a ton by eyesight of how they look coming into a checkpoint, one or the other, but I would say that Travis's looks like a pretty tough team to beat right now. It's 300 miles in, but still, he looks like a nice unit. They're all fresh. Looks like if he'd asked them to, they would have blown right through the checkpoint. So
nice. Nice. So dogs are looking good. Dogs are happy. Travis, what does he have? He's got 16 as of now, unless he's going to drop here in Nikolai. And what's your opinion on the dropping of dogs? Like, obviously, you drop a dog that is injured or whatever, but like along the way, I guess there's different tactics of doing the dogs, right? Like, some people say it's incredible that you get to the finish line with your starting dog team. But then somewhere along the way, some of those more competitive teams, it's very rare that you see a competitive team with all 16 dogs. Along the way, they're kind of like narrowing it down to their like 10 or whatever.
yeah, and I mean, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just curious about your insight on that.
So you're only realistically as fast as your slowest dog. Um, and attitude is a huge factor. Looks like Ryan coming in. Attitude's a huge factor. So if you have one who, not every race is going to be every dog's, peak race. Just like humans, they might, there's going to be gut bugs. There's going to be viruses all over that trail. It's kind of advantageous to be towards the front for that reason. You're avoiding a lot of them, but they're going to pick up, just like a human ultra runner, their GI tract is going to be strained a little more, which makes them a little more immunocompromised when they're exerting a lot of effort. Same with ultra runners, etc., in the human realm. So they're going to be more susceptible to picking up, bugs and viruses as they're going. And if you have one dog who doesn't feel 100% and attitude's everything, not to sound cliche, but it really is. So if you have one dog who's even just not that into attitude's contagious through a team, just like with a football team or anything. So leaving a dog will oftentimes speed you up instead of making a dog go when they're not 100% into it. I think I'd much rather have 10 dogs at the finish that are completely into it and stoked for, making somebody go who doesn't quite feel 100%. Um, that's the biggest thing. We want them to be running because that's what they love to do. And if they're not 1,000% into it, then it's not going to help your speed at all. And so yeah, I think that you look at Dallas. I think he had the fastest time from safety to home one year with like 7 dogs in his team. Dallas has really mastered that discipline of returning a dog with the veterinary staff um, before they have an issue. He can see it oncoming and he can send a dog home and keep that speed up in the team. Ryan's dogs look nice. He got a wheel dog slamming his harness, bouncing up and down, happy. He's banging his harness hard.
Nice.
Um, so having a big, powerful team is good, but you're not having running a full string just to run a full string isn't good for the dogs or the team. Because if somebody's got a gut bug or maybe a stiff wrist or a sore bicep or something, it's not going to speed you up. Um, just for the sake of having a full team, you could be moving a lot faster with a healthy 10 instead of a not quite 100%, 14 or whatever.
Sure. You know, excuse me. One thing that hearing you talk about Dallas that it reminded me of that I wanted to ask you about. Did you happen to watch the restart at all?
No, I did not.
Okay. So one thing that really stood out to me is as the teams are coming to the start line, you've got the dog, you've got your handlers. It's like all of a sudden all these people just come right in, right? And
Yeah.
what I noticed with most of the mushers is it's like they've got their dogs and those handlers all around, and until that 2 minute countdown hits zero, all those people are all right there, and it kind of seems like there's a lot going on. But what really I noticed about Dallas, like his whole team brought up the dogs, and then you could kind of tell like Dallas was like, all right, guys, everyone's good. I got it from here. And his dogs were just sitting there, like just, I don't know, for me, it kind of gave me goosebumps because I'm like, man, these dogs clearly know the task that they're about to get into. Because just like it was like they were calm and sitting there
Yeah.
waiting. And I just was like, man, those dogs really, they know the drill.
Yep.
You know, so I guess my question about that is like, how the hell do you get your dogs to do that? Like, almost every other
Um,
team was juiced.
that is 100% practice. That's kind of a practice makes perfect thing. And so Dallas, notoriously, he trains heavy miles. He is putting big run series. They're doing big run series in late October on the Denali Highway, early November. They're way ahead of everybody in miles. So those dogs are so used to traveling and dialed in on traveling that they're a lot more calm at a big event like that at the start line. It's just another cycle of miles for them. They know what they're doing. Um, and they're just a little more it's a little more mundane to them because they do it frequently all season long. Whereas and that's not necessarily the just the key to everyone being successful. Not every dog team is different, every training program is different. There's been plenty of teams who've won the Iditarod with 2,000 miles of training on their dogs, maybe even a little less. And then there's Dallas, who has probably double that at least. Same with Brent. He's gonna always have a heavy mileage on his dogs, and that's what works for them. Ryan
Ryan.
typically doesn't train as heavy a miles.
What about
Um,
Jesse? Jesse Holmes?
Jesse has, I think, done both over the years. I think lately he's been doing. I think he's done some years where he's done heavier miles, and he's kind of tried them both to see. And from what I've seen, he was training pretty heavy miles early this season. Jesse usually is ahead of the curve as far as finding cool temps out at his place in Brushcana. But I have heard, through the grapevine and chatting with him that his main team this year wasn't as heavy. He got kind of a heavy base on him early, and then wasn't hitting the miles. He was more doing maintenance runs. Because just like any athlete, dogs, they can only get to a certain level of fitness before you start to break down instead of build. Right.
Sure.
So just like a human runner, if you overtraining is a thing. Martin Boozer notoriously ran lower miles at a higher speed and kept them healthy, happy, and fast. And that's what worked for his run strategy. Dallas doesn't necessarily do short runs at a high speed. He's steady. And for steady traveling, those long miles are beneficial. But if you want to move fast at a higher speed on shorter runs and maybe have greater rest, you're not going to be hammering those long mileage runs. So, you know, Jesse, I think, was a little bit lower on miles from what I've heard. And uh, older, more veteran dog teams don't need as many miles. Just like a human athlete, they have that muscle memory. So, Jesse's got a pretty veteran team this year. So I don't think they're going to be as big a miles as he's had in previous years.
Got
Um,
you. Yeah, Sean and I always we like theorize, there is no right or wrong way to go about, what your training is, just like you said as well, like the same as a triathlete or a marathon or whatever. So it's always interesting just to see the different tactics that are involved in that. Now, one question that I did have about Dallas and my perception, my as a person who's never really even been on the runners, living here in Atlanta, my perception is that he doesn't necessarily have like long runs. He's just more known for like uh keeping like like a little bit of a maybe a medium run and like a 5 or 6 hour run and then like a 3 or 4 hour rest. Is that not?
yep,
Am I?
yeah, that is accurate. He doesn't do real long runs. He does shorter runs, but not necessarily at a high speed, at a steady speed. And what that does is when he gets to the coast, he's still going 8.5, 9 miles, 9+ miles an hour. Whereas a lot of teams, he just, he's the master of holding back. That's what he and his dad really have dialed in is really they keep their dogs a half a mile an hour slower than the dogs themselves want to be traveling. He stays on that break and he holds them back. And then by the coast, it's, as Wade Mars would always say, he's built the monster, and all of a sudden it's one of the fastest teams in the race. And then another advantage Dallas has is he can do those steady, shorter medium runs at a steady pace. And because of his dog rotation program, he can cut out entire rest cycles. So because he's constantly got 4 dogs, 2 to 4 dogs resting over the course of 4 runs, that means the whole team is rested a whole rest cycle. So instead, he can cut out an entire rest cycle and or cut a rest cycle to like 2 hours if he needs to, and keep everybody fresh and healthy. So overall, the dogs have the same amount of rest as a team uh, who's running near him with who's taken 5 rest cycles. Dallas can do the same amount of rest in 4 rest cycles, and that'll catapults him ahead a
So
bit. So that's where that rotation schedule really comes into play for Dallas.
I wasn't aware that Dallas was hauling dogs uh, until more recently. Is that something that I am just late to the game on knowing and he's been doing for a while? Or is that more of whether it's Dallas or anyone else, is that more something that is more current or more recent tactic within I guess you don't see that with short distance races, I would assume. So,
Yeah, Dallas and Mitch have been doing it and dialing it in for the last, at this point, almost 15 years.
okay.
Dallas virtually since Dallas has started dominating, which has been a little over a decade now. Um, that was his go-to strategy. He had his breakout rookie after his rookie run, he had his breakout finish, and then he all of a sudden was like in the winner's circle. And that was he kind of developed his system of mileage and race simulation. That's a big thing. A lot of he is simulating rest run every all of his training is simulating races, and then or it's just maintenance runs. But his what I'd say are training cycles. He's doing 300 to 400 plus mile run series. Steady like 40 to 60 mile runs and steady rest cycles, and then going home and giving them a good amount of time off, and then he's bringing them back in, I believe, doing just maintenance runs, stretch out runs, 30 to 50 miles. And I can't say this is 100% accurate, but it seems to be the system he has in place. Is he has big training cycles, I'd call them, where he's simulating races and then gives them some nice rest time and lets them recoup. And then he has maintenance runs to get them stretched back out, where it's be like a human marathon runner doing like a 5 mile jog essentially. And that's his program, is building them up with those training cycles and keeping them at that level with those maintenance runs. And all through that, he is practicing everything he does. He's doing it like it's a race. He's practicing rotating dogs, and he's doing checkpoint routine at every camp cycle. So same with how other top contenders are training. He's really dialing it in. Whereas other guys don't do a lot of camping. They're not doing a lot of run rest cycling like that. They're just doing steady training runs. And to each their own. It works each way. But obviously Dallas and Mitch with their dog rotation, and race simulation strategy have really kind of upped the game. Winning whatever they're at now, 7 of the last, I don't know, 13 Iditarods. They're winning 50%. One or the other has won 50% of all the races in the last 10
Well,
years or more than that, 11 years.
yeah, that stretch they had to close out the, like, I don't know what you call that, the teens, the 2010 to
Yeah,
2020. Like, their name is
yeah,
almost in every year. Um, so I have a question for you in regards to, like, comparing uh like Dallas, or it doesn't have to be all, we're not have to only be talking about Dallas. Certainly there are other mushers that are running a more, like middle distance runs with those rest times that we talked about. I'm curious, like I remember last year we had Ryan on after he won, and I asked him about, he had those two big runs. I think I might mess up these names with the, was it Caltag to Unilacleat? Is that, am I getting that right?
yeah. Yep. So yeah, the big moves you can make out there. Yeah, Caltag to Unilacleat, and then I mean you could go Unilacleat to Koyak if you're real powerful. But I think what Ryan did was he did Caltag to Unilacleat. Did he do Caltag to Unilacleat straight? And then I know he did
Yep.
Koyak
To White Mountain.
Koyak straight to White Mountain. So
Yep.
that's like one of the that's really the last move you can make. So yeah, he had those two big moves to kind of build up the coast. Caltag to Unilacleat is a good move if you have the team for it. That's what Thomas did in 2020. That really sealed the deal for him. And then, Pete Kaiser many a times has done that Koyak to White Mountain over the years.
Got you. So I guess my question is, you know, it seems like running those long runs that far into the race puts you, either you clearly win the race, right? Or
Yep.
you might push them too hard to the point where it doesn't work out. So I'm curious, like Ryan, he when he came on, Ryan was like, yeah, I actually wanted to pull off another run too. I don't know if he wanted to do the Caltag to Unilacleat, then Unilacleat to Koyuk, then Koyuk to White Mountain, but that to me just sounds absurd, doing those three runs back to
Yeah,
back.
yeah, it probably wouldn't have been doable doing that. John Baker, or not John Baker, excuse me. Dallas's team just came in, by the way, and they look excellent. John Ramey Smith to catch up with John Baker and put his move on in 2011, and it almost worked. You know, he really made up some time, and it's one of the most impressive finishes in the history of the race. I think Ramey Smith did Unalakleet to Koyuk, took 2 hours and 22 minutes, or 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that, and then Koyuk straight to White Mountain. So he did essentially the entire coast in three
Three
runs,
runs.
which is wild. You know, two huge runs and then White Mountain to safety. So it was really three long, like 75, 70 to 80-mile runs. And those are notoriously for everyone the hardest runs of the race. You know, Shaktoolik to Koyuk um, is it, crossing the Norton Sound there has the potential to be a devastating run, you know, if the storms are bad, and it's mentally tough for dogs. And so, you know, I think Ramey Smith doing those two runs is, and then only taking 2 hours rest there. And like his team was like fast still. They were powerful. Um, you know, I talked to Ramey about it in last year in White Mountain, and he that's how I know the exact amount, like 2 hours, 22 minutes or whatever. He goes, I did, you know, did Unalakleet to Koyuk, 2 hours, 20 minutes, and Koyuk to White Mountain. And he looked at me, and he goes, that was a dog team. It's like, yeah, that is a dog team, you know, and it's like, you know, so you have to know, you have to, if you just try that, like that run from Koyuk to White Mountain, doing that straight through is very difficult because that's two hard, honest 40 mile to 45-mile runs, and they're very tough. You know, they're not flat on the ocean. People think the coast and they think flat and steady. You know, the Bering Sea coastline is like jagged cliffs. So you leaving Koyuk, you're immediately climbing up out of the ocean, climbing over the hills, and uh, it's super. You know, you leave. Yeah, it's super up and down, a lot of climbing. Then you come out onto near Moses Point on the ocean after you drop down uh, from the mountains and on your way into Elam, and it's always very windy there. You know, you can expect like 30, 40 mile an hour side to headwinds. And then you hit a road from Moses Point up into Elam that's like 10 miles long, and it's all uphill, like long uphill. So serious climbing and serious wind. Then same thing, you leave Elam and you're going up Walla Walla immediately, which is one of the biggest climbs of the race. Then you're climbing Little McKinley, another of the biggest climbs of the race. Then you're crossing sea ice, and you got to go through Golovin, which is very difficult for dogs. If you push too hard, you know, they might just quit. You know, because they think Golovin's a checkpoint. You know, so they're expecting
Right.
to stop to rest. And if you've asked too much of them, they're, you know, you're not going to have a fun time making it to White Mountain. So you've really got to be cautious, uh, overdoing it in there. Like you've got to have a heck of a dog team to pull those runs off. Even Caltag to Unalakleet, the second half of that run is mostly downhill as you descend um, uh, down the portage into the, you know, onto the coast, and it's pretty easy traveling from Old Woman to Unalakleet, but from Caltag to Old Woman is, you know, quite hilly up and down.
Gotcha.
Um,
Nice. Nice.
so yeah, you've got to have a powerful team to pull those. You've got to have a lot of energy reserved to pull those moves off. So yeah,
But you're
go
not going to
ahead.
see like Dallas isn't going to pull that off, right? He's not going to have an 80-mile run, is he?
Not usually. Well, again, what Dallas is doing is he can stop and rest less than everyone else, because of his dog rotation program. Uh, is typically his strength, you know, and that so he can take an hour less rest at all his stops because all his dogs are getting rest, taking turns getting rest in the sled, and that over time pays, you know, adds up to entire rest cycles, and that's where his strategy really comes in. Um, is he
Gotcha.
doesn't need to do those long, like essentially what those guys are doing with those long runs is they're skipping a rest cycle, right? Dallas is already doing that by needing to rest less in the first place on each of his rests because they're they're resting in the sled.
Got you. All
Um,
right. So, real quickly, I want to just quick shift a little bit. We've actually got a couple of questions coming in from our chat, and so
yeah,
I want to follow up on what felt like the main story yesterday, which was the moose. You heard about this, right?
yep, I did. Yeah, I watched the interview also on it once
Okay.
I heard about it.
So, a couple of questions related to that. Have you been in a race where killing an animal is what you have to do to get through it?
I have not been in a race in that scenario. I have been in training and had to do
Right.
it. I've had my team kit attacked once. One dog had rib broken, so I was fortunate, no, life-threatening injuries. But moose charged up from behind it, and it like I didn't encounter it on the trail. It literally just chased me down from behind. Like I was cruising
What?
along, and I looked to my right. Yeah, I'm like on my. I was like 5 miles from home, maybe 2 a.m. after doing like a 650-mile training run, long, a little bit medium training run. And I look over. I one dog on my team turned his head and
Hold on one second, Riley. I think
so
we.
I
There we go.
oh there we go. Yeah, somebody
Yep.
tried to call me. Sorry. So I turned to look what he was barking at, and there's literally a moose running full speed right beside my sled. And he ran right past me, kicked the one dog who barked, tripped, fell down, got up, ran up by the leader, stomped around, luckily missed him, and then ran off into the woods. And I literally, by the time he was gone into the woods, was when I got the snow hook in and got the dog stopped. Like we weren't even ever to a full stop when he hit the team, so it was really wild. So there was no chance to think about pulling a firearm or anything like that. He was gone before I was even stopped. And then here's Jesse, ski pulling hard. Um, and then I had a standoff with a moose similar to that encounter right before the 2022 race start. Um, like literally, like I had vet checks the next day. And my vet was coming, so I was out on a run, and yeah, she stood in front of the team, and I fired two warning shots after yelling and shouting for a while, and she's like standing right in front of my leader, snorting at him with her head down. Uh, uh, and then uh, she, oh, after the second warning shot, she got more angry and started to, come towards the leader. So I had to
Take care of business.
dispatch her,
Yep.
which was, that's the last thing any of us want to do because on the race, the Iditarod has an agreement set up with the state troopers, so it's all legal. We have to field dress the animal. We have to gut it, get it, get so that its meat doesn't spoil, and then the race volunteers or whoever are going to come and get that moose and get it brought to somewhere that it can be quartered, butchered, and dispersed. None of that meat goes to waste. So
Right.
that moose that Dallas or that they had to take care of, it will get eaten. Same thing with Matt Failer's one he had to shoot in 20, what was that, 2022? Yeah. Um, it will get fed out by people will eat it. But when you're at home and not on a race, you have to do all that yourself. You have to field dress it, and then you
Yeah.
have to get it. You can't just leave it on the trail and quarter it. You have to get it to road access. So, I had to do all that, get it to road access, get it pulled. I was like 6 miles from a road, get a snow machine strong enough to get it and then winch it onto a Siglin sled and then pull it to the road. And then, the troopers came and chair, a family came that was on the salvage list, and quartered it. And they ate it, and they were super happy and grateful about it. But it's like a lot of work right
Yeah.
before Iditarod. So it's like
Right.
and then I have to do paperwork. You got to get interrogated by the troopers. Like I had to take the trooper out to where the incident happened, show them exactly how it played out, to show, they need proof that it was warranted, so it's not something we take lightly, by
Right.
any means. It's a lot of work and we don't get any of the meat. So it's not what we want to do.
So, some follow up questions to that. Generally speaking, I would assume when you're on training runs that you and in general mushers are carrying a firearm. Is that right?
Yes, it is. So I'm carrying, sorry, I just got to plug my headphones in. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, you're fine.
Okay, I had to plug my headphones in. They're getting low. So I carry a firearm. I carry just a, a 12 gauge with Magnum slugs in it. Because in my opinion, if you have to use a firearm, like you need it to be able to do the job, no questions asked. So I don't want like a small caliber pistol or anything like that. I carry a 45 on Iditarod, and I hope to never have to use it. With an extended a 19.
Hold on, Riley.
Uh,
Oh, there you go. You're back. I think your audio is a little bit cutting in and out, but we'll work through it.
Sorry, now somebody tried calling me again.
Okay.
So anyway, uh, yeah, I want to make sure that it's gonna work if I have to use that firearm. Sorry, I'm now watching Jesse with his dog getting his drop bags here.
No, we appreciate the multitasking that you're doing. So in general, you think that there are quite a few mushers in the Iditarod that have firearms on them, or is it like 50-50? And the reason
It's
I'm asking
probably
is, go ahead.
yeah, it's probably 50-50. You know, a handgun that's high enough caliber to deal with a moose is not necessarily a cheap expense. Like, the one the shotgun I keep in my sled, you can get, a second hand 12 gauge synthetic stock gun from any, gun shop on consignment or used for probably under $300. So it's not that big of an expense, and you don't have to worry about it getting beat up. Whereas like a nice pistol or sidearm that is big enough to deal with a moose is, you're looking at a grand, close to a grand. So it's an expense that not everyone has the money for, and then it's also just stressful to some mushers. I myself don't necessarily like carrying a sidearm on Iditarod. I do through the areas I consider moosey, and then as soon as I get to like the end of the Yukon, I give it to a race judge, and it's flown back to race director. It's flown back to safety, out of my hands. It's put in a lock case, and we get it from Mark Nordman at the end of the race. So we can leave that firearm with any race official. Official judge has to be obviously completely unloaded and locked open and everything like that. But I don't like the liability of having one on me, like once I'm really tired in villages with children in them. Obviously, if you have a sidearm, you need to know where it is at all times and have it, on your body and safe. So it's when you're tired, you're not going to see a lot of moose on the coast. And if you do, they're not going to be in a position where they need to attack you, in my opinion. So, and there's a lot of kids in the villages and things. So I just don't like the idea of being like really sleepy or sleep deprived and out of it, and just for whatever reason it's not on my chest holster and it's in my sled or something. And you just never know when you're sleep deprived. So I like to make sure I send that home, um, as soon as I think I'm through any areas with moose.
Man, that's some awesome insight there that you're giving. Just like you have it, but not all the whole time, and the different reasons behind that. It's like it sounds like you have your gun for its purpose, but maybe you don't like to have the gun around too often. Like I don't know. Like for me,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
Like I don't. Yeah, I just don't like to have to stress about the responsibility of safe firearm management when I'm like malnourished, dehydrated, sleep deprived. on the coast, and there's families and kids around. So it's a big responsibility to have a firearm on you. And if you're responsible about it, you don't want to be putting yourself in a position where you might just, you never know when you're super sleep deprived. The most responsible person in the world might just forget, and it's that's the last thing we want. So like I said, I have it, like you said, I have it for the purpose intended, and as soon as that purpose is no longer there, I get it in a lockbox, and I send it back to safety, with the judge.
Nice. Yeah, no, so just real quickly, my perspective, I've grown up here in Georgia, and down here in the South, hunting is a big thing. For me personally, I've never really got into the idea of hunting because it feels just like in the South that they're just kind of hunting to say, hey, I did this or I killed this thing that was this big or whatever. But when I went to visit Sean in Alaska, it was like the first time I ever was like, I really wish I had a gun, or I could see the purpose behind carrying a gun with you. Because when you're out there in the middle of nowhere, I remember the cabin we checked into during Sean's Iditarod run. We there was a moose blocking the driveway into the cabin, and after we got there, I wanted to go out for like a hike by myself, and everyone was like, "Watch out for the moose." They're making a big deal about it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you sound similar to me though in that sense of like, um, you need that gun for protection, but not necessarily having it on you all the time. What the last thing I want to hit on related to this topic of conversation is we're getting a question. What are your thoughts? Or no. Let me come back to that question. Is there an exemption to the rule of gutting the moose when a dog or a musher is injured as a result of that incident?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's not clearly written, but obviously, if you have to have medical treatment, or you need to perform medical treatment on one of your dogs, that's priority. Like, so that comes first, and the race is going to do everything in its power, if it's like in the Iditarod scenario, to get that moose. You get volunteers or somebody out there to get that moose gutted. But if you have, uh, emergency medical issues to attend to, that obviously takes priority. And the troopers aren't out there trying to, write you citations for an unavoidable incident like that. They just want to make sure that killing it was warranted, and then you did everything in your power to to process that moose and keep that meat from spoiling and make it usable. Um, and if there's extenuating circumstances like emergency medical treatment needs to be performed, they're going to understand that. So after you have an incident like that, a trooper's going to come interview you, get the lowdown, the rundown on what exactly happened, why, and they're not, like I said, they're not out there trying to write you citations and like get you in trouble. So if it's a situation like that, they're going to understand, and obviously get that you know dogs and human medical aid is first priority over the moose that's already deceased.
Got you. All right. Let me just. There's a couple questions, so I just want to make sure that we are actually getting all of these. So I guess more information will come out, but as a result of the run-in, specifically with Dallas, his team and the moose, one of his dogs was injured, and he had to drop him. And let me make sure I get this dog's name right. Faloo is the name. Hopefully I said that right. Faloo. Faloo. So Faloo had to be flown to Anchorage for some sort of an emergency surgery. And the update from Dallas's team was that the dog was out of surgery but was still in critical condition. There may be a new development in that story since we've pressed record that I'm not aware of. But I'm just curious to see how that all plays out. Maybe Dallas didn't see that his dog was injured until after he took care of the moose. We can speculate that on that all day.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but for someone was asking a question about, hey, did you see what happened with Dallas's dog? So I wanted to at least bring that up. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly. And I mean, you can, we don't have to, it's get told to us in the pre-race meeting, like we've got to get that thing gutted, but it doesn't have to be exactly precise. Like we got to get get it field dressed, but you don't have to do it like super tedious, So we get it gutted, but and knowing Dallas, like he is such an efficient mover and efficient woodsman that it probably doesn't take him super long to gut a moose. He's got a sharp knife and his axe, and he can uh get that rib cage cracked open and belly open and get it completely gutted in like I bet a couple minutes. Knowing him,
it's
he's
funny.
grown up hunting and
It's
everything his whole life, so he knows what he's doing. He's dialed in, and everything that guy does is dialed in. And so I bet he was like, well, I bet it was one of the fastest, cleanest guttings you could ever imagine. You know,
No, yesterday Eddie Burke and I were talking, and we were talking about that specifically, and he was like, Dallas, he probably did it in like a world record time or whatever.
yeah,
So
exactly, exactly. Like I bet he was so efficient and fast with that. It would make your head spin, and it was probably like perfectly done too. You know, um,
well, so
I doubt it.
one thing that I picked up on a lot of the insider videos after that happened was a lot of those teams were running over the dead moose. Apparently, it was literally in the track or in the area where the sled goes, and a couple people just had funny stories about that. Um, so I think Dallas mentioned that it happened about 12 or 15 miles outside of the checkpoint. So I'm sure there was some logistical things to figure out in terms of getting someone over there to remove the animal and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably had volunteers or people local go out with siglins. They probably quartered it and got it on siglins and brought it to um, you know, wherever it could be utilized.
Right.
Um, which fortunately, yeah, fortunately the race does that for us. Mark is really good about making sure that's all coordinated and gets done. Um,
Nice. Awesome. So we were talking about the hauling of dogs, and there was a question that came from that, and that was that the person watching thought that they had a rule against hauling dogs in the trailer. So I guess that's maybe something they've updated. Is that something that you used to not
yeah,
be
so
able to
they
do?
Yeah, so there was a while, Dallas and Mitch really brought it into the fold again. And then in oh, shoot, what year was that? 20 uh 17. Yeah, let me think here. So when was Dallas obviously won in 2021 when he returned after his hiatus. What was the first year that when was his last win prior to that? Was that 20?
Dallas's last win prior to 21 was 2016.
Okay, so I think it was 20 after that race, maybe for the 2017 race, because 2017 Mitch won,
Correct.
set the speed record. That was a Fairbanks start. So I think that the 18 and 19, so Dallas participated in 17, but got second to his dad, I believe, or third or something like that.
Second
And
is
I think maybe
correct.
there was a hauling rule enacted. You couldn't haul dogs behind your sled, so you couldn't haul them in trailers. And that was enacted around that time, I think 18, um, 18, 19, and 20, and then they overturned that rule somewhere like 2020. And by 2021, when he returned, to the Iditarod, you were able to haul dogs again. So yeah, it was for a while you could only haul them in front of you was the rule, I believe. So they had to be in the sled. Um, and then it was overturned. Um, and yeah, now you can haul dogs again in trailers. So, fun fact, Dallas has not won the Iditarod when you could not haul dogs in a trailer. Just
Really?
statistical. Yep.
Wow. That is
So it
super
shows,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so it kind
That's
of shows you how, he didn't participate. He was taking a kind of hiatus and going over to Norway and rebuilding a different team kind of through those years. But it does give you a little insight on how big that is to his strategy. It's a big part of how he operates and how his race plan plays out.
yeah, that is super interesting. I never realized that. So, um, so I think that
I
we've
think Wade was the musher rep on the board during those years when that rule was enacted. Um, so he could give you more definitive dates on all of that.
yeah, we'll
But
have to follow up with him when he's on. I think he's on Friday, so um, that'll be something that I put in the notes to follow up with him on. Um, so we've answered quite a few questions from the folks that are watching. I appreciate that. And I guess as we've been chatting, is there anything else that you've seen, whether it's on the tracker or on the live feed, that's kind of caught your eye about any of those teams coming in?
Jesse blew through. Looked like he returned one dog with the bet team he had in the bag coming in. Then he took a bale of straw and he took off. Um, so we'll see how that plays out. Um, he's going to obviously camp somewhere between Nikolai and McGrath. And then, I don't know where his 24 is planned. He could potentially just go from that camp right to Takotna in 24, or he could go from that camp all the way to Ophir, which I think could be a likely strategy we'd see play out. So it'd basically be he's going to go another 20 miles, 15 to 20 miles here, um, rest, and then that would give him an approximate, say he goes 15 miles, he'd have 35 to McGrath, about, what is that, 26, 25 to Katna, so that's at 60 miles, and then another like 18. So you could do like a 70 uh mile run to Ophir from this camp, approximate, and then take us 24 in Ophir. So this could be a little bit of a move for him here, jumping Nikolai and then doing one long run all the way to Ophir, and that'll set him up a couple hours ahead of some of these guys, leaving this 24 theoretically.
Let's see. We got a comment that said something about Aaron Burmeister does not haul dogs. Part of his rivalry with the CVs, I guess, is the comment. I guess he's anti hauling dogs. Is that sound right to your recollection? Is that a topic of is that a heated topic depending on who you are in the mushing
I don't
world?
know that it I don't know that it's a heated topic necessarily, in the fact that I believe the rule to eliminate hauling dogs was enacted when Wade was on the board, and it was overturned when Aaron was on the board. So if he was, really opposed to it, I'd imagine he'd have fought harder, had more talk. And I wasn't in the finishers club at that point. I didn't finish till 2020. My rookie year was 2020. Um, so a lot of this was going down, because the musher rep talks with the official finishers club and gets input and opinions. And if there's an issue that, finishers want brought forward for a rule change, then it comes up to the board. Again, I don't want to put words in the mouths of anyone on whether they're pro or anti hauling dogs. I am pretty certain that Wade always believed he wanted to have 16 dogs in harness running the race. And I might be mistaken on that. I know Allie and Alan were very big on that. They wanted their dogs in harness. So, I don't want to say one person's stance if I'm not 100% certain, but I yeah, I don't know if he's real anti or not. There are some older school, more traditional mushers who are, you know, are proponents of it not being allowed. But it's legal, and you gotta take advantage of all the rules that are in place, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
I don't fault Dallas at all for doing it because it works for him.
sure, sure. So, I pulled up the top 20 right now, and this is as of whenever the website updated it. So, I've noticed that sometimes it's immediate and sometimes it's not. But earlier we were talking about how you said traditionally the winner is one of the first 10 into Nikolai. All right, so we've
Yep.
got those names up, and not all of them are into Nikolai. Um, but do you flip a coin on those first five names you see there? Jesse, Milla, Travis, Ryan, and Dallas. Do you like where's your head at with that front pack?
Um, I honestly think, who's this Matt Hall coming in? Looks like, yeah.
Uh,
Um, I
yep.
Yeah, it's a coin flip right now. We'll see how they kind of shape up coming through here. My favorites for the race are Pete, Jesse, and Dallas. Personally, oops.
Got
Um,
you.
yep, that's Matt Hall coming in.
Give us an update on what you're
Look,
seeing there with Matt.
he's looking good, speedy. Dogs are spunky. He looks very fresh. Um, Himself physically. I know it's early in the race, but Matt over the years, I was good friends with him, handled for him, and 10 years ago would not look this fresh at mile 300. He's really dialed in his nutrition and his sleeping patterns and his diet and hydration over the years. So it's good to see him looking really sharp and fresh himself. Um,
Nice. And then let me ask you this: what what familiarity do you have with the class of rookies in this race?
Not a ton, but my favorites. You got Will Rhodes, who's their top notch speedy program, very good dog training, very good dogs, very good mushers. So in my opinion, you're looking at a race for rookie of the year between Josie, who has been phenomenal in her lower 48 career, as well as her Alaska debut this year, rookie of the year in the Basin, finishing with all 12 dogs. Um, finishing Quest 300 with a nice team of dogs. So I think it's kind of Josie and Will might emerge as the front runners for that Rookie of the Year title, and then Isaac Tieford obviously can't be counted out with Dallas's 2-year-old team.
Yeah, yeah, I'm on board. We Sean and I haven't had a chance to talk with Will yet, so we aren't as in the loop on what his season and what the buildup has been like for him. But we did have Josie on, and I was super impressed with her, and obviously Isaac, he's been on as well, and especially with his poor luck that he and Dallas had earlier on the Denali Highway. We're certainly rooting them on. So I just figured I would ask you about
I
the rook.
I think it could be pretty tight between those three. So all super nice guys. I think that I mean Brenda, Will's wife, is Dick Mackey or Rick Mackey, excuse me, Rick Mackey's daughter, and she trained a lot. Rick Mackey, people forget about him, but he was Iditarod champion, and then you talk about consistency. He was top 10 or top 5 like all through the 90s. He was duking it out with Boozer and Swingley, and Kent Wright in their primes. So you look at his Iditarod record, and it's really just unbelievably consistent. So they know, and she was a big part of training those dogs, from my understanding, and his team when she was a teenager, and he was racing in his peak. So they know what they're doing, and they have very good dogs. And I think for him to enter this year's race is gonna says a lot, as far as they must be feeling pretty confident in their program.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Anything else on your mind in terms of the race or in terms of things that you're seeing?
No, I'm seeing Hunter come in now. I'm guessing he's gonna have a beautiful looking dog team, because that team is always just excellent looking, um, excellent performing. So we'll see how they cruise in here. I saw Matt unharnessing a dog. It looked like he's gonna return one with the crew. Um, Here's Hunter.
Yeah, I decided I would attempt to pull a Riley, and I've got the live stream up as well, so I can kind of get an idea of what you're seeing too.
So the thing with Hunter and that Ramey Reddington dog team, super team he's got, is they don't necessarily have like travel with a ton of super top end speed, but they never slow down. These guys, I would guess you'll see them going 9.5, 10 on the Yukon when everyone else is starting to fade down. That's kind of what he did last year. So, he's got a nice team, very steady, very experienced. So, I'm eager to see how his race unfolds here, because I think it's a really nice group of dogs he's got there. They look excellent. So here.
You know, talking about Hunter has me thinking about. I saw a picture of him. I can't remember who he was with. It was from the bib banquet, and he is a tiny dude, like 5'5" maybe in boots,
Yeah, that
and
might be dinner. Yeah.
so it made me think. Well, it, this that picture I saw, and then I was looking at some other pictures, and I saw Mats Peterson, right? And he
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
he was like one of the tallest people, and so I actually messaged Mats and was like, "Is it safe to say that you're the tallest musher this year?" And I think he is at like 6'2" or 6'3". And Sean and I always talk about that. I'm like, when we watch these videos of you all, I like, for some reason I assume that you guys are all like super big or tall, and then like I've started to see and notice that, man, you guys are tiny, most of you at least.
Yep. Yep.
What?
There's yeah, I mean, Matt, Pete and Matt are a solid 6 foot, maybe six. Matt Hall's like 6'1". Pete is probably right around 6 foot, somewhere in there. I can't remember if he's taller than me or not. I'm right at 6 foot. Matt's like 6'1". Matt's probably, though, right up there, second tallest guy in the race at 6'1", to Mott's. When Thomas is over, he's, up there 6'3", 4, somewhere probably. Um, but Brent's, probably 6'2". So there's some taller guys out there, but there's a lot of shorter guys. Looks like Matt grabbed a bale of straw on his tail dragger. His dogs are looking good, and he's getting out of here.
What am
So
I
same
missing?
thing. You could see him and Jesse, probably be doing one. Each one will be doing one or the other. They'll be going from this camp likely straight to their 24. You never know, but that would be my guess. Um, if you're blowing Nikolai, you're probably heading, just with distances to other checkpoints, you're probably doing a run to your 24, or maybe they'll do a short run at the next checkpoint and go a little further for their 24. But it'll be interesting to see
Hey, can you give us a
how
little
they
bit?
are.
can you give us a little bit of insight on the sleds? This is a question coming from one of the fans. They noticed that Dallas's sled. I don't know about Dallas's sled. I noticed Ryan has sleek, non-bulky setup, and Travis has a big trailer. Would be interested in learning more about sled strategies. I guess some mushers switch in McGrath, or maybe at the coast.
Yeah, they'll probably switch to the coast. Like I said, Travis, I believe that big trailer's for hauling dogs, so that all plays into his. He's got an extra big sled bag and an extra big trailer, and that's playing into his strategy of resting dogs while he's moving. So I don't know when he'll probably want to be rotating dogs all through the interior, and maybe even on the Yukon as well. And then at the coast, probably switch to what we. Assuming they're able to send sleds to Unilocleat this year, they may switch in Unilocleat. Or Travis's, he just ditch the trailer and ditch his seat and then have just the front sled. Whereas Ryan's running like a GOT mid-distance sled, so it's a little bit smaller and he doesn't haul dogs in his strategy ever typically. So yeah, different strategies that play out for different people. With that big trailer, though, everything on Travis's sled, it looks big, but it's light. Same with Dallas, that stuff, it all looks big, but Travis has had all that stuff custom made, lightest weight material for the bags and fabrics custom sewn by Sled Dog Systems. And he works with those guys a lot he's constantly tinkering, having things changed and customized. So all that stuff looks really big and bulky, but it's all very light. So it's lighter than you might think there. You see some chit chat between Dallas and Travis going on there.
Yeah, I was just watching that. Let's see if I have any other questions from the fans here.
Yeah, I'm doing my buddy Loro's return dogs, and I keep getting an Anchorage number trying to call me, so it very well may be the return dog crew. So
okay,
I might have to cut it off here soon.
That's fair. I mean, you've been on with us for a little while now, and Laura was giving you a shout out. I don't know if you saw that video on the Insider yet. He was saying he was talking to you. I think I wrote something down. What did he say? So this was his notes from what is the checkpoint that after you complete the steps, you go into what checkpoint?
Rainy Pass.
Rainy Pass. So this was his interview from Rainy Pass. He said he enjoyed the steps. He mentioned hearing from you during that. And the one thing that he was kind of toying with in his mind was that he was balancing the desire to go be competitive versus the goal of just getting to know him. And I don't know, if you have to run, we can cut it off, but I just thought I would bring that up. I don't know if you have if you have any thoughts on that in terms of
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a big investment, and the trail is so complex, and he's put so much time and money into it that on your rookie run, if you're a guy like Loro, you're not a bucket lister. He's got his own dog team, his own program. He plans to race for years and years to come. That on this first race, there's something to be said for just being smart and seeing the trail, because the Iditarod trail is so diverse and so complex that you don't want to go out there, push too hard, and just get and kind of fall on your face. It's really good to take it all in your first time. If you're building toward, if he's not, doesn't have a super team that he thinks is ready to win now, if he's building towards his future, there's a lot to be said for taking it kind of easy, learning the trail, and then the whole time just be, thinking about what you'll do different in the coming years, using it as a learning experience. And I think that for long-term success goes a long ways. And you don't have to worry about the potential of, a disaster and not making it to know him on that first attempt. Just go easy, take it as a learning experience, and just be building towards your future.
Right on. Well, Riley, I really appreciate you coming on today. I know that you probably are eager to answer that phone, and I may be in touch with you throughout this for any questions I have, or if I see something I'm
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
so. But I know the fans appreciate you coming on. They've been asking some great questions, so shout out to those folks as well. And until next time, man, thanks again for coming on.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Brendan.
All right, take care,
Thanks
Riley.
for all the questions.
Nice. So before, I'm just gonna close out Riley real quick. There we go. Before we end this, I just want to thank everyone for watching today, and you guys have, like I said, have asked some great questions. Tomorrow I think maybe my mic's a little hot. Tomorrow we have Aaron Peck on, and man, the dude is so nice. We had him on the podcast, I don't know, maybe 3-ish months ago, and I pitched to him this idea. Hey, man, we're going to do that Iditarod coverage. I'm really curious if you'd be willing to come on. He was actually the first musher that we asked to do this. And so once Sean took his opportunity to be out there on the trail with the insider, it became apparent, like, well, I can't have the same guest on every day. They're going to get tired of talking to me. And so, that's where I got the idea to start adding more mushers, more Iditarod veteran mushers. And so, I got my list of our lineup of who we're having on. And then the next step in that was figuring out, who's available what day and creating the schedule and everything. And so Aaron sent me his schedule. He's like, I'm available these days and I'm available these days. And so I plug it in and I send him, hey, you're going to be on Wednesday the 6th. And he's like, yeah, that should work. I'm actually just going to have been getting into Switzerland the day before. And, but so I say that to say a shout out to Aaron, who is going to be joining us tomorrow from Switzerland. I'm super excited to have him on. I think that the analytical side of Aaron is really going to shine. He was kind of talking to me a little bit about that last time we were chatting. And so on that note, I will go ahead and close things out. I'll thank you all. We'll be back again same time tomorrow with Aaron Peck. And, for those of you who are thirsty still for some more content, we encourage you to go over to the Iditarod's website. If you haven't already, it's not too late. Become a subscriber or a membership or whatever. Sean's out there on the trail. Makes me so happy as his brother, just to see him. And it's kind of crazy that as I'm pulling off this thing on YouTube, I'm over here watching him on another screen, setting up the cameras and doing stuff in Nikolai. And let's see if he had an update. I'm curious about, let's see. I know he's going to another checkpoint. Let's see. I'll just give you a quick update here. Okay, yeah, no. So Sean's going to be on the Nikolai live stream for today, tonight, and into tomorrow. So if you're watching anything that you're seeing on Nikolai that you like, that's my brother. If you're watching anything you don't like on Nikolai, that's my brother. It's all love out there. Speaking of my brother, I got my shirt on. I'm representing today. And we'll do another quick shout out to these cuties, Arlie and Rowan. I would say maybe our biggest fans from South Wales. Thank you guys for joining in. And until the next one.